All right, good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome back to the Nifty Q Show. We're interviewing founders, leaders, and builders in the non-fungible token industry and Web3 space. Today I'm sitting with Jordan Lyall, a serial entrepreneur and founder of VenturePunk. Will be touching on his journey since leading off the 2020 NFT bull run with MEME, where he thinks the industry is headed towards the end of this year, his NFT NYC thoughts, and much more. Jordan, that's a lot of stuff, man, but I hope we can get to it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Q. Thanks for having me again. It's always great to chat. So much going on, even in a kind of this down, quote unquote, down market. So much happening.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about your Web3 free agency right before I press live, man. Tell me a little bit about that. Let the listeners out there know what the update is from you with Venture Punk. I know that's kind of hitting the deep and heavy stuff right away, but I love it.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's good to get up to speed here and get some context. Serial builder, serial entrepreneur, um, and so last year I launched Niftys.com. We did projects with uh, Warner Brothers. There was the Matrix project, and Looney Tunes just launched. A bunch of really cool projects coming up as well. Um, I've I've decided to kind of part ways. I'm still an advisor and co-founder and shareholder, so I still want nothing but success for them. But I need to get back to my roots of building and startup mode and native Web3 and get back to just having fun with NFTs again. So yeah, just joking about being a Web3 free agent for the first time, just because I've gone from project to project with no gaps and lots of overlap and always working on different things. So it's the first time where I could actually take a breath and take stock of the market and figure out where I can best apply myself and what values and value I can provide to other projects in this space. So VenturePunk is it's kind of a catch-all for all the things that I like to do. Love helping other entrepreneurs, love investing in others, whether that's capital or time or advice. So it's like one place where one entity I can use to leverage my experience and network. And
Mm.
so it's it's going to include me consulting for some projects, me advising and incubating projects, some of my own projects I'll launch through it. Um, may set up a fund at some point too to invest in others, to invest in assets. So it's really just it's really just uh, like my brand extended
Yeah.
to be a company and still really flexible, but I'm excited because I can do a bunch of different things. And as you know, I've got my hand in a bunch of different projects and different corners of Web3, right? So I'm excited to help out. And I'm currently, talking to a lot of different people trying to find projects that I can jump in and help. Like there are several. I just had a couple of calls this morning of like, hey, we have this amazing tech, we have this amazing art, we have a small community of like passionate people. How do we take it to the next level?
Mm.
Um, and now that we're in this quote unquote down phase, I think we're gonna see these quality projects rise to the top, and these other projects where people were just in it for the money or for the lulls, those will start to fizzle out, and we'll really see the quality rise. So it's like how do we make sure that the good projects stick around and can continue to engage the community?
Yeah, I want to get your answer to those questions of those founders that are asking you these important questions on how they're building their business, how they scale their business, all this good stuff. I would love to get maybe some answers that you can give them. But before that, backstepping a little bit, you mentioned how you went from project to project with no gap. With this like area of time now that you can kind of sit back and reflect, do you look back at all and say like, what I learned from each project, maybe MEME, maybe Niftys? Have you been like taking a reflective approach on those two projects?
For sure. Yeah, there's been some downtime and giving me the opportunity to really think about just in the last 2 years, how things have changed so much. And I always tell the story in my origin story in crypto. Bitcoin in 2013, but Ethereum in 2017. In 2017, when I really fell in love with Ethereum and the ecosystem and became a quote unquote builder on Ethereum, I was working at a company called JibJab, which was a big digital media company, big early internet media uh, platform and studio.
Mm.
Um, they acquired my company back in 2014. So even thinking back then of like digital content was there before the blockchain. Um, so it was like still one story arc, right? Where I worked at this innovative digital studio creating fun content for the internet, and then I worked at crypto startups. I worked at Consensys launching products in DeFi, and that led to, oh, I love the blockchain. I love fun digital content. Let's mash them together and start something like MEME,
Mm-hmm.
which spun out of control on its own. But it was like it was kind of like the perfect project for me to just sink my teeth into and get behind and devote all that the time and attention that I gave it.
Yeah. So two things there with meme, and I love to kind of dive into a bunch of different things, but like, what is the Pineapple Gang up to these days, and what is your biggest takeaway from the meme time now being about 2 years out from that
Yeah,
project?
yeah. In August it'll be 2 years, which is just crazy to me. Um, Meme is still there's still a pulse, um, because of the small tight community that will always kind of have meme in a soft spot of our hearts. Meme will always be a thing, I think. Um, there was, when the three of us, me and my meme co-founders, left to start Niftys, the thought was that we can kind of do both and start to transition. Obviously, that was naive to think that we could do two major NFT platforms at once. Um, so we decided to put all our attention on Niftys and hand off the reins of meme to the community. And there were several people, including Silver Surfer, that said, yeah, we want to see meme continue, so we'll start to build future iterations and future platforms. One thing or another, that didn't happen for one reason or another. There were a few starts and stops, and there was a new token that was issued. There was a new PFP project that was issued, and some highlights here and there, and some great additions to the community. But this new platform that was supposed to take things to the next step didn't actually launch, and there's kind of a falling out between the existing community and Silver Surfer, um, and that's kind of where we're at now. Is in this next valley. There, like in between new launches and releases, new versions of meme. There are some early rumblings of people that are in the community that want to launch something and utilize the meme asset and use the meme community. So I wouldn't count meme out by any means. I'll always be around. I'll always be in the community. I'll always be fighting and pushing, um, and helping wherever I can. So
Mm.
I would expect a return of the meme in some shape or form here in the next, the rest of this year, potentially in the next few months, if I had a hunch.
Yeah.
Um,
I really
yeah,
think that someone that's listening, out there, you need to understand how big meme was at the time. Like, you guys were like a viral community at the time. I remember what was the hashtag that you guys would, don't buy meme was like a huge hashtag at the time. It was just like such a big thing within the smaller NFT community that existed at the time. And you mentioned also that, there was this handoff to the community, which I think gets talked about with DAOs, and how this is like the natural progression that you should eventually move to. What I mean, like, what were some of the little things that went wrong? Was he just not communicating to the community? I
yeah. I don't want to spend too much time just like calling him out, but
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
um, Yeah, I mean, it's hard to launch a product in general, not just in Web3, but it's hard to build software that people want to use, right?
Mm.
So I think there was some underestimating what it takes to build, um, and just not being totally aligned on incentives, right? We handed off all the assets, right? We handed off the treasury at the time, or a portion of the treasury, and we handed off the domain name and the Twitter, without like an understanding of what all that meant. And hey, it was kind of just handing it off. Hey, go for it, and that enough kind of like, um, handshake agreements, and not really enough around like holding people accountable and uh, informing the community. Um, and it's because part of it is because it's there were no entities. There were light versions of a DAO,
Mm.
but there wasn't really anyone holding, incentivizing someone to launch. It was really, for a while. I mean, that was kind of how MEME was going. It was more just like a labor of love, until we tied in some fee opportunity in the secondary and did some other things. Did some like auction. It was really just a labor of love, um, and that can only carry you so far. And especially when the market turns over, or when it just, the community fights back, and all the negative sides of this stuff. So there's a lot of drama in there, but it's really just like, it makes sense. There's a lot of competing priorities. When those incentives aren't lined up perfectly, it's hard to get someone to work on your project.
Yeah, I think I've heard that from several other DeFi founders, right? That maybe start with a token. Meme token was, I think, existing before the NFT platform itself existed. So that's kind of the opposite of how NFT projects launch now. But there was an issue of like, okay, there was this massive increase in value on the token, but the team wasn't necessarily associated. So I mean, like that's a great kind of segue into like talking a little bit about DeFi before we make it to Niftys, man. Like, are you involved in any DeFi projects these days, or how do you think the DeFi space is moving forward because it was such a big thing in 1920?
In 2019, 2020, yeah. I was the DeFi guy in many circles, right? I was at Consensys. I was brought in to be the product lead of the DeFi team at Consensys. So like, I was living and breathing DeFi. When NFTs came around, it was almost just like a switch that flipped, and it was like, we're doing more than just building financial software. We're actually getting creative, and we're building communities that way, and we're getting to work with amazing artists. So almost completely shifted my attention into the NFT ecosystem, and kind of kept my eye on what was going on in DeFi land. We also started to see more financialization of some of these NFT protocols, and now, there's JPEG, there's, you know, guys like Arcade and NFTX, and people like using NFTs as collateral. So they started to bleed together a little bit. So that, I would say, most of my attention, or a lot of what's going on the DeFi side in my world, is as it relates to NFTs. I stake Ethereum. I do some things here where it's kind of like set it and forget it. But yeah, a lot of my time is spent more focused on NFTs at the moment, and DAOs, and innovation on that side, which I feel like it's all related. It's all
Yeah.
overlapping, right? Um, so yeah.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure there when you're at Consensys that when NFTs started popping up and you started talking about it to your team, you were likely like getting a lot of sideways looks, which is entirely different 2 years on. So you moved on from. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Did you have anything there?
Well, it's funny, Consensys is just this huge company founded by one of the co-founders of Ethereum. They're amazing at what they do, but like, I think they tell you that they've in the last few years they've kind of been late to the party with DeFi and late with NFTs. Um, they've kind of upped their game, and now there is like Consensys NFT studio and department and all that. But yeah, early conversations is like, no, DeFi is silly. We need to be doing, big enterprise level stuff, or we need to be doing central bank digital currency. We need to be doing all these things. Um, and then when it came to NFTs, people just thought it was cute. People thought it was one cool use case, but not necessarily something that we can build protocols and companies and products around.
Yeah, I want to get on some of the chat here. Asmodai saying the way meme initially played out was insane. I still have my grail. Big shout out to Alien River, Hash Rhymes, and some others that are showing up here early as we just went live. So when you're talking about Consensys here, why do you think that they're so late on a lot? And again, I feel like I'm reaching for like us to kind of throw dirt on anybody. It's not to throw dirt. It's just to kind of like, I guess, discuss these topics. But why do you think they're so late on some of these movements?
They're taking a big bite of this whole space. They are probably, if you had to pick one company that is you could point to as being like so influential and impactful in the Ethereum ecosystem, crypto at large, over the last 8 years or whatever, like you'd point to Consensys, just because they power or invested in or oversee so much of the ecosystem, so much of the infrastructure, from Infura to MetaMask to all their investments, invested in pretty much every major project over the last few years. They've just got so much going on, and they've kind of been riding each wave, right? So in the 2018-19 downturn, they had to lay off a bunch of people and move from like 1,500 employees to under 1,000, and now I think, and they recently split into two, or a couple of years ago, they split into two entities. So they're just trying to, they're riding the wave of each market cycle. Become a big company with a lot of different opportunities when you're able to take projects with the Microsofts of the world, when you're able to take projects with like actual governments, like countries. It's hard to do everything all at once. They have had success whenever they kind of empower like founders. I know they're always kind of rethinking and manipulating their internal structure, and having a team that focuses on investing and having a team that focuses on building products and communities and projects. But they have enough capital and enough really brilliant people that I know they'll figure it out.
Love it, man. So you mentioned two places that you worked at here. So Consensys, you moved into Meme, and then you started having discussions with your co-founders at Meme about Niftys, and Niftys is a great product as well. I know the Matrix drop was like a huge for the space, in my opinion. You guys have been working with like a lot of large IPs, a lot of large brands. So tell me about kind of founding Niftys, what you've learned since then, and then we can dive into some of these specific drops that I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, sweet. So yeah, as mentioned, we had Meme. It was doing really well. Because we launched the token first, the economics were strange, made more sense for a community project. We were approached by OXB1, kind of the big collector and DeFi whale, and he said he's putting a team together, kind of like the Avengers Initiative, right? He had some people that were looking to start an NFT company. Me and my co-founders at Meme just launched an NFT platform and community. So Jeff Marsilio, the CEO of Niftys now, he came from almost a decade at the NBA doing new media stuff. He launched the blockchain initiative at the NBA, which went on to produce Top Shot. So he had this background of media and business and IP rights and all this stuff. Instantly get in the door with all the big brands. And we had this background of like actually launching NFT projects and deploying NFTs and doing all that. So it sounded like the perfect combination, and it was. We hit the ground running, and we literally launched our first day with the Space Jam project, and brand new platform. Getting to launch with the big summer movie was great. It's an awesome team, and it's doing so well, and they're starting to find their footing in terms of like what they should be focusing on, the users they should be focusing on, the projects they should be focusing on. Because a year ago it was like, there's so many different opportunities. Where do we focus? Are we a studio? Are we actually doing the art? Are we just a platform? Do we provide an API, or are we creating bespoke projects for each customer, or are we the interface? And they've started to figure it out, and they've started, with these launches of several other projects. You mentioned Matrix, which was huge. Matrix was the first PFP project at 100,000 pieces to sell out. First 100K PFP project to sell out. And that was amazing. And that was such a, and there were several hundred people that got in line. So like we couldn't even keep up with the demand with, 100K PFP.
Yeah.
And that was super fun. And that community continues to flourish. And right now they're launching more like gamified and like engagement platform, where now that you have your Matrix character, you can compete in different challenges and prizes and run up the leaderboard and earn rewards and compete against other people. So they've kind of found their zone in like this big IP, like known IP, launch a big community, build out this system for engaging the community with a new PFP drop, and then keeping them engaged and building out this ecosystem and this economy for like Chuck E. Cheese. You're earning tokens, then you're redeeming for prizes. Some are IRL event experiences, some are additional NFTs, others are like merch. So they've kind of found the sweet spot, and they just launched a project with Looney Tunes. And I think in the next couple of months, you'll hear some new updates from them.
Yeah.
Not just on the product side, but also, with new partners. So yeah, doing really well. I mean, when you talk about like things that I learned, I mentioned why I'm moving on, and that's they found that zone, and it became more of a like they found their spot, and it's engaging these big brands. And for me, my background is like startup product management, starting things from zero.
Yeah, I do want to stop you there, because this is the crux of like the discussion that I would like to have,
Cool.
which is the idea that some projects are tackling mass adoption, and it's cool that we're even able to have those discussions now. I feel like even 2 years ago we would say it, but it didn't mean anything. Now you're selling out 100K drops. The idea and the debate I think that's happening right now is the difference between scarcity and flipping and investing that you see in Ethereum right now, and what you're trying to do with 100K drops on Top Shot, 100K drops on the Matrix. I want to get your thoughts on the difference there, right? There seems to be this like backlash against projects that launch on Flow, for example. Like Doodles was thinking about moving to this protocol, but the Ethereum community is much more used to, hey, let's build smaller projects, let's keep the scarcity low, and let's all make a little bit of money. Whereas I feel like these larger distributions maybe don't have that in mind. So I'd love to have that discussion with you. I know that's a kind of a big topic, but I'd love to get it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that was always a challenge. Right. Do we go out of the gate really strong with 100K, or do we take it slow? Point number one is that like, it's all an experiment, right? Like we're all just trying to figure out what is NFT mass market. What does that look like? given the success, at the time last year, NFT summer last year, um, there was obvious demand for something like this from the Matrix, from a big studio. We started talking to these big brands as soon as we launched the company. So in February and March of 21, and the reason I think the one of the major reasons why we landed so many of these big deals was because we were approaching it a little bit differently. You had people approach, like everyone wanted to do a project with Warner Brothers, right? One of their new movies. Um, why did Niftys get the deal? Well, several reasons, team and all that, but we 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 knew what they needed, and that was user engagement. They didn't need to do something like Coca-Cola and mint a couple NFTs and sell them for 100K. They didn't need to do something like Top Shot was just showing clips because that was done. They needed something different. So we brought this background of media and growing communities, and we tried to do something that was more of like engagement around this known IP. So I think there's something there, and that's kind of why it caught everybody's attention. They could have done anything, but they decided to like build on top of this community engagement thing. But I think it's still early, and I think we'll start to see more and more experimentation. For some projects, I think it's important to launch on an L2, or at least wait until Ethereum has done the merge here in a couple months, because in the Nifty's approach, focused more on non-crypto natives, right? For many people, it was their first time buying an NFT. For most of the people, they bought with a credit card. They didn't really know that they didn't really know what the blockchain was. They had a wallet. They didn't know maybe what that meant. They just knew that they bought an NFT and they've got it. Under the hood, they could have exported private keys and they could have sent it around and done all this stuff. But more of a mainstream user was the focus there. And in that case, it doesn't make sense to do it on Ethereum because the user's going to have to pay a ton of money in gas, and you need to educate what gas is. You have to educate of new wallets. But we were able to do this kind of hybrid approach on a side chain of Ethereum, and make it really easy for the new user. I think that's one thing, and Niftys is going to continue to explore that and make it easier and easier as time goes on. And then you have people and big brands that are going directly to Ethereum, and they're just kind of focused more on the existing NFT community, and we've obviously seen things with Nike and Adidas and others that are going directly to Ethereum, and I think it's great. And I think at some point we'll probably meet in the middle, right? Again, it's all experimentation. I'm excited to see what in this down market, the companies that are in it for real because they see the value in a tokenized community, and those that were just kind of in it to make a few extra bucks. So yeah, I'm excited to see what some of these groups can do in the coming year.
Yeah, we've seen examples of how the Ethereum projects, activate their community. I think obviously like those are the projects that we see all the time. I am interested in how the Matrix and Space Jam, how these communities are built after the fact, after those drops, happen, and what that looks like on the ground. Because it's like you said, it's a little bit different of an approach. So if you have any insights there, I would love to get them. And then the differences maybe between Matrix and Space Jam. Like what were the needs of both of those companies? Did they differ at all, or did they come across very similar?
Yeah, they both were Warner Brothers, so it was the same partner, same
Gotcha.
client. With the first one, it was really completely an experiment. NFTs were the hot thing come summer of 21, and we wanted to do something that was a little bit more traditional, like a trading card. So the first NFT looked like a trading card, and you had different versions and different rarities and different characters. You had Bugs Bunny and um, Daffy Duck and Taz and the Roadrunner, uh, as part of like the movie. So it was really a movie. I wouldn't say it was a movie promotion, but there's a reason why we launched it like right around the movie, right? So that the NFT project could hopefully promote the movie and vice versa. So that was focused more around like an experiment, and not really necessarily long-term plan. There wasn't a huge roadmap. We ended up doing several other follow-up projects where, okay, you've got your Toon Squad, then you're going to get your Goon Squad, which was, the villains in the movie, and then you could do burn and replace, and you can get some extra things, and um, so experimental, and it was really our first attempt. When it came to um, Matrix, we had this we kind of had this whole story arc and roadmap thought of ahead of time. So a month after minting your Matrix character, you can take the blue pill or the red pill, right? Everybody was given the option. So it was like gamification and engagement, storytelling was kind of built into that project from the start. So that we kind of learned our lessons and kind of realized that like, um, keep things going and to keep things excited, to keep people engaged, we had to have some of this stuff figured out ahead of time.
What does success look like for your Warner Brothers partner there? Like, is it a sellout of the project? Is it an increase in awareness? Like, what metrics are they looking at to come back to you and say, hey, we want to do this with another brand?
Um, yeah, I think initially it was just like, uh, do enough people care about this thing, right? So sellout, I think was good. We were continuing to like massage the numbers up until launch of like what could be a sellout. For us, it was probably the same thing. It was an experiment of like, can we launch a project and get people interested? Um, Moving forward, it was like, okay, NFTs are a thing. We have enough passionate people. There's a big like untapped fan base uh, of Space Jam. 100x the size of the Matrix community, right? That were just like for what 20 years waiting for a new movie. Um, so that's like this untapped, dormant, like beast of a community that would just jump at this stuff. Now the shift of thinking of like goals for the project shifted to like revenue. This could be a revenue opportunity both up front and then down the road. So that shifted some of the requirements and some of the goals and some of the goals around the community. Um, it's easy for the pendulum to swing a little too much in that direction, and I think it's helpful to do something in the right in between, which is more like, let's just get passionate community to get together and let's get money. We need money to continue development and to pay developers and all that. But I think users can tell when it's so profit focused and it's more of a cash grab,
Hmm.
that I think you need a combination of like a trust between the brand and the platform and the user, that yeah, there could be a lot of money passing through, but it really should be enough to kind of keep the project going and not necessarily, writing checks to big IP holders.
Yeah, well, you mentioned trust. Like, if you have a launch, again, this is where the Ethereum detractors come in. It's like, if I don't make any money, essentially, maybe I lost trust in you, in a sense. Like, the projects that are super engaging within the Ethereum space have noticeably, increased in value over time. You don't see a lot of, projects that lost people a lot of money as the biggest blue chips in the space. I know that's kind of like a chicken or the egg situation, but
Yeah.
that's, I think, the biggest detractor comment, right? Would you have anything? Is that kind of what you're getting at, or any thoughts on that?
No, it's really tough, especially now recently after, in the last month or two, as we started to see projects not sell out. And that was kind of a splash of water, right? Of like, oh, just because you have cool art and you mint a cheap NFT and like doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to sell out. You can have all the following and promotion. We're starting to see more and more projects go to free to mint. I was just talking to a founder today that like at the last second they decided to mint for free and hope that just for the optics of like selling out, they sold out in minutes or they minted out in minutes, and hope to make it up in the back end and follow ups and things like that. Um, but now they don't have, similar to like the meme story
Great
where
point.
we minted the NFT and we didn't have a treasury, we didn't have a dev fund, so it starts out just like volunteers with like just wanting to do it for fun, and maybe it someday we'll get some money coming in. But it's really hard to know, right? I mean, it's better to get it out there, get all the art out there, and start to prove how you're different, rather than just like we were relying on getting $1 million in our initial sale or however much, and then just being stuck. And what's the incentive to mint if only 10% have minted? Why do I want to mint anything?
Hmm.
So it's tough. I mean,
Was
part of
that
it is just
project
timing.
successful? Was that project successful that you mentioned? You don't have to mention them by name, but the one that wanted to do a free mint, did that end up leading to more engagement or more interest
Right,
in the
we're
mint?
right in the mix of it right now. I think, yeah, they went free and they minted out in a few minutes. Um, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we go from like this really cool art, small group of passionate people, and how do we tell more people about it? How do we get more secondary volume? How do we get more people in the Discord? Um, that's I think that's the problem a lot of groups are facing, whether they did a free mint or they charged and didn't mint out. Even some projects that did mint out, and there's like at some stagnation point here where it's like, how do we take the next step?
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of people jump to like staking or airdrops or ERC20 tokens or all these other things, and in some cases they work, but I think there a lot of times some of these things are pretty um, short-term focused, and it's cool to do staking, but like unless it's really built in and it's part of your value system, it really just could be a temporary like crutch. And if people want to sell, they're going to unstake and sell, and it's really just a way to keep the floor up. So it's all superficial, and it's tough for founders that want to do it right,
Hmm.
and not. You see some projects where they're always talking about the floor, where groups of people are getting together and buying up the floor. Um, Sometimes the project itself is part of that. Other times it's the community does it,
Hmm.
um, or they're buying wash trading mints and using the multiple wallets and building out these things. Yeah, it's really hard to spot those things and be a builder that's trying to stay above all that stuff and build a strong community. And maybe their only fault is that they waited a month too long before
Yeah.
launching this thing.
I,
Um,
I,
yeah,
I do feel bad for those founders that are launching legitimate projects into an absolute bear market where if you launch something 6 months ago, I don't care what it was, or maybe
it
in the
was selling.
summertime last
Yeah,
year, yeah, I was selling. You mentioned Meme launching your token prior to the NFT launch. Like I said, that's not obviously the case for most NFT projects. Usually there's talk of like some ERC20 or some, quote unquote currency after the fact, after the NFT project is launched. I know Andre launched Wi-Fi and had a little bit of the same issue where there was like a whole distribution to the community. How do we get paid? There, but I want to get your take on this because I do feel like the NFT free mint does have that incentive of the fee, right? Like that's what your main goal is at the end, right? The 2.5% basically is like I guess the standard across the industry. So maybe it's a little bit better than you guys had in just the DeFi space, right? With the meme token or Wi-Fi, for example.
yeah. With Meme, it was you know airdrop a token to the Telegram community, um, and then see what happens, you know. And then some of us were motivated enough to go post liquidity, and then it was like, it's not like you're holding a NFT and it retains value and you can buy and sell it, but we were motivated to then go build a product, build a platform. So that's when, you know, a couple of us, my co-founders at MEME, spent the next 2 weeks after that launching the don'tbuymeme.com platform, where you stake your ERC20 token and you earn points which can be redeemed for NFTs. And so we were kind of motivated. Okay, if anything's going to happen, we need to build. And I think it kind of flipped around, where it was just like, we need to just launch these NFTs, and we don't really need to build anything other than just like a 10K project. And people kind of relied on the community maybe a little too much. Where I think, like, don't even get involved don't even start something unless you're like committed long-term, full-time for a year and at least, and you don't have to have a specific roadmap necessarily, but just like bullet points, major milestones of like, everyone talks about, oh, then we're going to do a metaverse thing, and then we're going to build a game in Unity or whatever. But you need to show some steps of like, here's how we're going to provide value. And I say these things as that was like a negative for MEME, but that was the only way it could happen, right? Because that's just how it happened. And like, no one would have cared about it if we said, hey, we're going to be doing this thing. And I would have loved to know what would have happened if we built the platform just as a platform and had others maybe build on top of it, and there was no meme token. So I'm curious to know like how that would have played out. However, without this airdrop and this instant pump and this crazy valuation and token pump and crazy community and the meme of the pineapple and all that stuff, without that, like, it wouldn't have been a thing.
You're right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, you created Evangelist like right off the bat just via the token airdrop, and that was, yeah, I agree. Like, it happened the way it happened, and who knows what would have occurred elsewise. So you mentioned going from Niftys, where you were working with these big IPs to launch 100K drops, to wanting to go to a smaller group or building smaller projects. That's what you're doing here at your new project here. So tell me a little bit about this new venture that you got going on, man.
Yeah, titled Venture Punk, and kind of borrowing off of, still working on the branding and messaging and all that, but borrowing from the punk ethos and culture and community. I think when you own a punk, there's an understanding. We had a punks brunch in NFT NYC, and there's kind of like this unspoken shared understanding of like, oh, this person's either an OG or they care about this community so much, and it's not necessarily about the hype. The other side would be, these giant projects. No pun intended there. And so the whole idea is that we'd have more organic growth, and so I'm going to be advising some projects and doing some consultant work and launching some of my own projects here and there. I've had several side projects, but this will allow, like, give it an opportunity for some of these things to really grow and flourish. If big company comes knocking, be hard to turn down some of these things. But I think at the heart, it's like, if they understand what it's all about, which is just like community first, slow growth, experimentation. My experience even before blockchain was like, launching several products and startups, the lean startup mentality, which is just like, at all costs avoid waste. And it's such a bummer when these big like, going back to what we're talking about, when these big projects launch and no one seems to care. So kind of flipping it around and starting with the community. So still, I guess, taking lessons from meme, which is like start with the community, start with the vibe,
Hmm.
start with these shared ideas and goals, and then slowly growing things and issue a token when that makes sense, and being open and transparent and upfront, not being afraid to step on the gas and grow, but only doing it so when it makes sense. And it's funny because um, this is all kind of happening. Like I would have done this regardless, but it's all happening in a bear market now. Um, but it just lines up perfectly because now is the time to like, okay, what didn't work in the last cycle? What was clearly just like hype driven, and what were the elements here that actually can sustain a project long term, and really build to learn and build engaging with the community. We saw a lot of people that like uh, launched projects without like caring about the community, and people just jumped in because number go up. Um, so I'm excited to see like real builders and real community people. Not that they don't exist now, but just more and more of them enter the space. So yeah, Venture Punk is really just like a place where I can, give all my resources to, and it's a mix of like advising projects and providing like co-founder as a service or CPO as a service, and just love helping others and helping others build. So whether it's from like advisory positions or capital, if I'm helping out on the financial side, or incubator, if I can, if a CTO comes with this great tech and I can be more of like the business co-founder or the product co-founder, and um, hire internally so that we can manage, several different projects. Um, so yeah, currently looking for potential customers and clients and partners, and really, other entrepreneurs and people building in this space with cool tech and cool ideas. So I know there's a lot and it's still pretty vague. We're still working on exactly the positioning and the branding and everything, but it comes down to it, builders helping builders. However I can, I want to help builders.
Yeah, you just made the announcement via that Twitter thread before NFT NYC. So when can we expect like that first partner list of who you are working with, man? And I would love to get like what questions they have, like the conversations you've been having over the last week, for example, that you said you were kind of sitting down with different co-founders and founders and trying to scale the companies or trying to build new products. What are these questions that they have?
Yeah, yeah. Happy to come back, in a few months after launch, and have that conversation of like how things have changed. But it's companies that are like, and projects that are like all in this kind of boat that we've been talking about. There's something there, whether it's like early traction or early revenue or passionate group of users. But how do we take the next step? How do we raise a seed round? How do we rebrand so that we're uh, we still have this OG kind of vibe. How do we make it look like we're not just trying to cash grab? Because we're not. How do we grow the community? So it's all these projects that, like, in one way or another, where they're a CCO project or they're a big corporation. It's just like, how do we grow, and how do we build an awesome product? How do we get the UX right? Um, how do we get connected to, you know, community managers? How do we get connected to artists? It's all those types of problems. It's just like, how do we take the next step? So having done this for a few years now, far from the expert, but I think I've got some things and some value to provide some of these groups. So it's exciting. I love working with different entrepreneurs, different problems. Um, I, by taking on several different clients, I get to, no 2 days are the same, and I get to
Mm.
keep things interesting and work on different things here and there. So I'm excited.
Yeah, another thing that you get to do working with different clients is experience these different communities. What, I guess, community pieces have you seen over the past maybe, 6 months, maybe a year even, of probably projects doing it the right way from like a community building standpoint? Like, what are some I guess, topics that you can give to these project leads that you would say, like, here's an example of a community doing it the right way, in the same way that maybe Meme did it back in 2019?
Yeah, it always comes down to like authenticity and transparency. This Hive community can spot, the fakes and the shillers right away. Um, and you know, trying to think of another example because it's so charged, but I'm a big fan of Proof and Moonbirds, being a Proof Pass holder since Mint, and being able to watch what Kevin and team have done in launching Moonbirds. Uh, it's been a great example, and they've had some, a leg up being a Web2 founder connected to all these advisors and investors and things. Um, I don't know if you can hear the trash truck
I
outside my
can.
window.
They're
My
taking out
bad.
my bags.
Yeah, there you go. Uh, no, so Moonbirds I think is doing some really interesting things. Nobody's perfect, but like where they've continued to ship and they've continued to build and surprising the audience and not just having this perfect roadmap lined out, but sharing enough where we know something's coming here, something's coming there, but then all of a sudden we hear about oddities, So having the right balance of like delivering on promises
Mm.
and delighting the community, totally upfront and clear and open as to what's happening. Um, I really like what they've been doing. I don't say that just because they have, several moonbirds. Um, but I'm really interested in like a lot of CCO projects as well.
Mm-hmm.
CCO is another thing that's like a step deeper, which is like now the IP is open source and now the community kind of owns the these characters in this universe, and it's up to them to kind of grow and build. So that's something that's I think really really interesting. That's another big experiment, but you see some cool communities coming out of that. Nouns is kind of the classic. It's the godfather, so to speak, of the CCO kind of movement. But I really like Toads on the smaller side. I like Tiny Dinos and what they're able to do with like a free to mint multi-chain CCO project, and they just continue to build and ship and host a cool community. So that's another one, and I think it's still super early in this, and that's the meme, and I always say that, but it's just like
Yes, we're
we're
early.
still we're still trying to figure out like what's the best way to do it, and I think CCO is not for everybody, but it's cool for some things. We wouldn't want Star Wars to be CCO, or else we wouldn't have. It would look a lot different now. But it's really cool that we can create new things and have it be community owned since jump. Um, a DAO is not for everybody. Sometimes you need a centralized company for certain reasons, at least for now. Um, Yeah. So it's not fun in a down market. It's not fun when your portfolio just collapses overnight. However, having lived through several of them, um, there is something special about just like the months or years or however
Don't
long.
say that. Don't say years.
You never know, man. You never know. I've always been horrible at timing the market,
Mm.
but this time is time for builders. And I know that's overused and that's cliche now, but it is, out of these the after the dot-com movement you saw, or the dot-com time, you saw some really great companies come out of there, and out of 18 and 19 you saw some really cool crypto projects come out. It
I'll tell you one thing, man. Like, experiencing NFT NYC from afar this time. I know we ran into each other at the ran into each other. You invited me to the Niftys event, which was awesome, but we didn't get a chance to talk that much while we were there. But this time, experiencing it not there, but across my timeline and all these different things, it was cool to see the community interactions IRL. Like, it was much different. I feel like than I feel like communities almost had more time. We had more PFP projects that existed, here, and it was just awesome to see like each IP build out an experience for their community members. That was like something we didn't see as much in 2019, I feel, or in 2021.
Yeah, it was only like what, 7 months ago, and how different it looks, and the ETH price looked a lot different, but they were still there, and they were still creating these communities and events. Ape Fest did happen last year, but I had some really cool guests, but like this time took it up a notch, and I think we're natively digital. We're here in different parts of the world chatting. But there's something about being together in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to break bread and have a beer with some of these people that you've been working with, communities, just getting together. And yeah, it's so fun and so rewarding.
Yeah, speaking of that, community getting together, Sky Labs is something I wanted to touch on. Ronan made sure that he commented on that Twitter post and told me to ask you about Sky Labs. So would love to hear about what you're doing with that as well. I know you guys got together in NY.
Yeah, yeah. So Skylab is, again, it's starting as an experiment. Um, I launched Skylab about 2 months ago, and what it is now is a private community of Web3 builders. That's it. Where it's a Discord with about 100 people, and it's builders helping builders. So whether you're an entrepreneur, an investor, a developer, a creator, a collector, but you're building in this space, um, you're in this community and you're helping each other out, and it's sharing of resources. Hey, I need to hire so and so, or hey, I need this, or hey, I'm trying to fill out my round. And it's just a good group of people that are just kind of helping each other out. I've intentionally tried to keep it on the smaller side and let it grow organically for the reasons mentioned. Where at MEME we quickly launched into a token. Other projects you quickly launch into a DAO. So for this one, I wanted to pump the brakes a little bit and see what the community needed and see how this could be most helpful to people. It's been 2 months now, so I think as often happens, like I went too far in the other direction, and now we need some kind of guidance and government and governance, and someone kind of pointing in a direction to go. So in these last couple of weeks after leaving Nifty, started to put more time and attention into growing Skylab. So we have a lot of ideas of where it could go. It could end up being an incubator or a fund, or we could build projects together, or a DAO, or maybe it's a tokenized community. A lot of different ideas. But one way or another, like it's a cool group that help other builders in this space. And we now have a jobs board where builders can post their open jobs. There's some cool like content soon going to be coming out of that space. It's just another way that I can help others and connect with other people in this space and access deal flow. So it's not completely altruistic. There is some for selfish reasons, get to talk to cool people building in this space and get to write angel checks for really cool projects, and just build alongside friends. So it's a fun community, and I see that continuing to grow. Yeah, if people are interested, they can check out skylab.xyz and fill out the form, and definitely want you in there, man.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I filled out the application right before the episode. One of the questions on the survey that got me hung up was, what would I pay for this membership, right? It was like less than an ETH all the way up to 5 ETH. And I was there for about like, I'm probably 10 minutes thinking about like, okay, like I need to know like what is involved here. And it was just a cool thought experiment that I think you like threw into the middle of a survey. I'm interested to see what like people answered on that survey as well, but
it's wide ranging. Yeah. And if you're a good builder and you bring the vibes, then everybody's welcome in. However, it's interesting to see what people. It's part of it is just like like a survey type of question for me, like how much do you value this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Does it need to be a free thing? Right now, it's free. That haven't charged anybody to participate. But at some point, do we issue an NFT? Do people start needing to pay dues?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a question, just because I was curious, like, do people think it's just this quick, free community, or are people really engaged and would pay several ETH? When I asked the question, ETH was a different price, but I think it still works and help like directionally determine, like how invested people want to be in this thing.
Just to be open and transparent, I answered two, so
Okay,
I put it out there, right? Okay.
gotcha. Yeah.
So
Go ahead and send that to
uh,
jordanlyall.eth if you don't mind.
I definitely will right after this. So that was the payment for coming on the episode as well, as I believe. But now I'm just being a little bit of funny there at the end of the episode. We do have, kind of that bear market that we're talking about. That's kind of the last thing I want to get to, is where you think maybe we're headed in the long term. We've been through a couple cycles together already, so would love to hear your thoughts on where this goes.
2019 or 20, it was like the focus was on DeFi, and I think we proved that there is a path to product market fit. Maybe it's product market fit. And I think with NFT summer last year and where we're at now, like we proved as a ecosystem that there's something there with NFTs. Something you don't get anywhere else. That we need the blockchain to do this. I think there will be something else that says whether it's combining these things or it's something entirely new, but that's going to kind of continue this you know growth, slow growth up and to the right, long term, zoom out up and to the right, and that these middle, in between things are really just subject to macro economy stuff, right? I think the world, the crypto market would look a lot different if we didn't have COVID, if we didn't have, um, the inflation issues we're having in the U.S. We didn't have the Ukraine war. I think things would look a little bit different. And then this volatility is obviously subject to like just natural human hype cycle and all these things and greed and all this stuff. But I think long term things are moving up and to the right, and it's just finding the right combination of these technologies and teams. Um, we said it before, but like now's the time to build and do it in like a focused but experimental way, a patient way.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's hard for people that like lost a lot of money or they need income, but like now is the time to try different things, and like I said, pull out the things that worked from the previous rounds, and but continue to iterate and continue to talk to users, and again, it's going to shake out the real builders in this space, and the real communities that are there doing great things. So I'm kind of cheating by creating a company that will allow me to do different things and be able to be flexible. And if a project works, but if then I can put more resources into it. If a project doesn't work, then I can kill it. So that how I set that up is allowing me to be flexible and work on different things. Or hey, if a PFP project explodes, and that's great. But if I launch something as an experiment, I can move on and do something else. So yeah, now's the time to experiment and talk to your community and solve real problems.
Man, it's awesome to see you continue to build since those meme days, man. Like really seeing your trajectory in the space is really cool to watch. And
Dude, and you were at an early on in that journey, almost 2 years ago. You guys were, your community and the NFT Live community were early on, and I think one of the first podcasts I was on. So big
yeah,
thanks to you, and it's always fun to stay in touch and stay in contact.
all those many decades ago in the NFT space time, man. I love it. But yeah, great conversation here today, man. Drop those links for anybody that's interested in getting involved in the projects that you've got going forward as well. And then we'll get up out of here.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Can you drop the links by chance?
In the chat here in
Or
Riverside
or
or on YouTube?
just tell them. Just tell us what we
Oh,
got.
just like say it. I can do that. Yeah, so I'm at Jordan Lyall on Twitter. VenturePunk is just venturepunk.com. Skylab.xyz. Uh, MSN.com is pretty cool. No, I don't know. That's it. Yeah,
Awesome,
VenturePunk.
man.
check us out.
Cool. A great conversation here today. Thank you guys for tuning into the Nifty Q Show. We are coming at you again tomorrow around the same time with Skate X. It's going to be a great conversation on what they're building. But Jordan, Lyall, love to have you on, man. We'll have you on again for a 4th, 5th, 6th, however long we're in the space together. Super excited to see you continue
Always
to build.
fun,
Thanks.
man.